So, welcome. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to this panel. I am Kalani Schimmel. I am part of GPS STEM. I'm the admin officer, so I assist in our program, specifically assisting a little bit more right now when Lauren Lyon, our program director, is on her maternity leave right now. So she will be back in January, and you'll be seeing a lot more of her and more minimal of me. So I will let Tessa go ahead and take over from here.
Sounds good. Thank you for that introduction, Kalani. So, hi, my name is Tessa, and I am a training council member of GPS STEM. So, I will be your moderator today, and I know for a lot of us, doing an internship in grad school is something that's very integral to our professional development. And from convincing your advisor all the way to actually doing the internship, there's a lot of questions that haven't been answered for a lot of us. So we have, luckily, with us four lovely panelists who have done an internship during grad school, and they're here to share their experiences. So if we could start things off by having the panelists just quickly introduce themselves, name, year, and where you did your internship, then I'll kick things off. And you take yourself first.
Hi, my name is Karen Lopez. I'm a sixth-year PhD candidate in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, and I did my internship this past January, or this January, at Eli Lilly in Indianapolis.
All right, I'll go next. Good morning, everybody. I'm Cameron Galler. I'm a fifth-year PhD candidate in the Department of Developmental and Cell Biology. And this past summer, I interned at AbbVie, specifically at their Irvine campus.
Hi, I'm Rahil. I am an international PhD student starting 2021. I did an internship at BarinCo at 2023, summer 23, and another one at Sonera, summer 2024. I'm from Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sydney. I just graduated this last spring, and I currently work in the Dean's Office in the School of Physical Sciences here at UCI as a research development officer. And I got the position because I did an internship with the UC Irvine Office of Research starting in my third year of grad school through basically the end of when I graduated. Yeah, so excited to share my experience.
Thank you, everyone. So we'll start with the first topic, which is preparing your advisor. So what we'll be covering here is how you approach your advisor about your internship goals, maybe telling them what the benefits are and any potential challenges you run into. So for everyone, I guess I'll start with the first question. Well, not every PI is willing to let their students do an internship during grad school, but since you're all here with us today, you were successful. So was your PI amenable? And if so, or if not, how did introducing the elephant in the room go? Cameron or Sydney, I think you guys have a little bit to speak about this. So if you don't mind starting.
Go ahead, Sydney.
Sure. So for me, my advisor is kind of like one end of the spectrum where she was very open to the idea of her students doing internships. There was already another grad student in my lab who had done an internship before I had asked about it. And his was far more complicated and required like leaves of absence and stuff. And mine did not. So it was pretty easy to get her on board with wanting me to do an internship. And I also explained, like, she was the one who introduced me to the career path that I was interested in. So she was encouraging kind of from the start in terms of helping me with my professional development. And then throughout my internship, I gained skills that I was actually able to use, like coming back in the lab. So I was doing an internship with the Office of Research, which involves like grant writing and helping faculty apply for grants. So I was able to actually help her with her own grant applications and be like an extra person to help on those when I like wasn't doing internship duties. So it ended up kind of being a win-win where I was able to bring those skills back into the lab.
Yeah, so for me, for my PI, I only spoke to her on 2 occasions. The first time was when I expressed an interest in applying for internships. And the second time is when I got an offer. And while my PI was very supportive when it came to me doing an internship, there also was concern about whether or not it would significantly impede my timeline to graduating. At the time, last August, when I was looking into applications, I was very much in the thick of my thesis project. There were a lot of things going on. And so to help my PI, when I got my offer to AbbVie around December of last year, I asked my PI before I signed the offer letter if we could meet to discuss it. And in addition to discussing the offer letter, I had also come with a very well thought out plan of everything I wanted to accomplish before starting the internship to show her that it wasn't just me saying, hey, bye, I'll see you later. It was more like, let's collaborate together on this strategy for everything we want to try to accomplish and all the boxes we want to check off. Because in addition to the internship, I also was going to be taking parental leave. So I really wanted to make sure we had a solidified plan that wouldn't affect my timeline. So that should be more supportive to saying, hey, you did a lot, you've gotten pretty far. The other people on your project, they can do these things while you're gone, enjoy yourself. And when you come back, we'll hit the ground running.
Let's see. For Karen specifically, we know you planned and had a more detailed explanation of why your internship opportunity would benefit you. So do you mind elaborating on how you brought that up to your advisor and if there's any other effective ways that you think would be good for others to know for how you can get support from your advisor?
Yeah, so when I joined my lab, I joined knowing that I wanted to go into industry afterwards. And so the first conversations that I had with my PI were like, hey, I want to go into industry. And so I want to use the PhD in order to prepare me to go into industry. So I just made sure to speak to my advisor throughout my whole application process. Once I decided, okay, it's time to apply to internships. And so what I did is I would let her know before I started applying, like during my applications, like, hey, I submitted another application today. And then once I received my offer, I was like, hey, I received my offer. And so I still experienced a little bit of pushback in terms for the same reasons that Cameron mentioned earlier, where it's like concerns about finalizing your project or like, I don't know if it's a good idea for you to go, like things are still not working here or like things aren't flowing smoothly. So I think it's important for you to just hold hold this opportunity dearly, really, because the project is still going to be there when you get back. And so I just told her, like I'm willing to stay. That's why I'm here an extra year. So I was like, I'm willing to stay a little bit longer, but I really need this opportunity just because of the state of the world. And so I'm like, I need that entrance into industry.
Thank you. Let's see. And as a follow-up for what you mentioned, Cameron, actually, since you mentioned you had like a detailed timeline for what you do for your thesis project, do you mind expanding upon that a little bit more? Because it seems like for a lot of PIs, they're not necessarily super opposed to people doing an internship, but more like, how is this going to affect your productivity? So how much detail did you have to go into for yours?
Yeah, so I tried to do a week by week plan, which it took a lot of like mapping everything out, really understanding like what I need to do for this aim of my project and that aim, et cetera. And when do we want to anticipate submitting the paper for my project? And so I literally just printed out a Word doc template with a calendar and said, okay, here's my to-do list. How can I fit it into every single week? And I think, there were modifications that my PI and I made. It wasn't a perfect chiseled in stone plan. But by going week by week and saying, what's the house on fire objectives that need to be quenched right now? What are the could do experiments that can be moved lower on the tier? And so the two of us, I think, really hashed it out so that we could make sure that the momentum wasn't disrupted, or if it was, like minimally. And we started having more people in the lab help to contribute to my project, an experiment here, an experiment there. And so I think that really, by the end of that conversation, she was very much like, I wish you the best in this internship. I hope you have a good time. And more or less, we were able to knock out most of the things that we had organized with that agenda.
Sounds good. So now we'll be moving on to the second part of our panel, which is more or less a topic that I think most of us wanted answers to, which is the application process and the timeline, because you convinced your PI and, well, now you're thrown into the mix. So for everyone, if you could speak about how you went about identifying opportunities for an internship that aligned your professional interests, and then maybe go into how you prepared for the application or interview process. So why don't we start off with Sydney on this one, actually?
Okay, so my internship with the Office of Research at UC Irvine was entirely informal and self-directed. The reason I even knew that there were such a thing as like internships in alternative academia roles or staff roles at the academy was just from doing informational interviews with other people who were in roles that I was interested in. So when I was thinking about career development and where I wanted to go, I personally knew I didn't want to go into industry. So I was looking at these alternative academia roles. So I did informational interviews with as many people in different kind of support staff roles at universities as I could to learn about kind of what the breadth of options there were. And then I realized that a lot of the roles that I liked aligned with this umbrella called research development, which is helping faculty apply for grants and helping them like develop those programs and making connections so that we can get like centers and things at the university. And that was all really interesting and exciting to me. So I continued to do these informational interviews, and people mentioned, hey, you know, you don't actually get a lot of experience with grant writing as a grad student, so it's probably a good idea for you to see if there's any way that you can get involved at your campus. Just reach out to the Office of Research at your campus and hopefully they'll have something for you to do. So I did. I ended up reaching out to our head of research development here at UCI, who's Mike Gallo in the Office of Research, and I set up several different meetings with other RD professionals on campus and met with them and talked about their experiences and said, hey, I'm interested in like doing some interning work on the side and maybe shadowing you and learning about this process. And I essentially just like kind of inserted myself in there and said, I would like to do projects for you for free on the side so that I can get this experience. And no one's going to say no to that free labor in terms of getting things done in the all academia sense. So I was able to just like kind of make the internship for myself, and there wasn't really a formal application process. And then I essentially just said, yes, please give me whatever projects you want me to work on. And I started out with like meeting with people and learning about different functions of the role. And then I was able to be brought on to larger projects, actually helping out with several big grant applications. And then that just like built over time. And I was just willing to say yes to pretty much everything that they were willing to give me so that I could get that experience. So I think there's a lot of room in terms of if you are interested in a like non-traditional position to just reach out and say like, hey, I'm really interested in this. Can I talk to you about your job? And then in that informational interview, ask if they have any if there's any room for you to be able to help out and do like an informal internship like I did.
Rahil, would you like to share next?
Sure, yeah. I like that Sydney talked about the importance of informational interviews. So my path was kind of more conventional. I was using LinkedIn to find internship positions, and then I realized how these informational interviews are helpful because I would go to the company's website, find people that are working in the at the like position that I like, and I would talk with them and ask them what would be good to show in my resume, like when would the process of application would start, when would you look at the application. So like I would get all the inside information that I would need. Maybe I would learn what kind of skills would I need and maybe for the next year after that. So yeah, like informational interviews are so helpful. And so about the timing and the process of application, I think I can categorize it in two categories, where one is the big companies that might start from you might need to prepare for them from early as the year before. So maybe if I want to go for a summer internship, I would start from October or November from the previous year. And I would apply for those kind of big companies at that time. But for the startups that I was like also focusing on, I think that timeline would be more on January, February. And to find the specific positions, the big companies, again, in the category one, the big companies have their positions posted on their website, on their LinkedIn. But for startups, you can, that's what I did for the first internship that I did. I approached people on the startups that I liked. And even if there was no position, I would approach them and I would tell them I'm interested. I would give them my CV. And for my first internship, they kind of like created the position for me because they were interested in my skill set. And they were like, okay, yeah, we have this like position that you with your expertise can fill in. So that's how I approached them and I found that internship. But for my second internship, there was a post in LinkedIn and I was able to be on top of the candidates because I was connected to the person that posted that position on LinkedIn through a conference that I went. So informational interviews are so nice, and also the connections you make in the conferences and networking events that can also help you to find positions for internship. Yeah, I have a lot more to talk about, but I will wait for the questions.
Sure. And then this next question set is for Cameron and Karen, since you both did internships at larger companies, AbbVie and Eli, respectively. Did you have to prepare far in advance? Because sometimes these applications are released far earlier than the actual time that you'd be doing your internship. If so, what did you do? Are there any tools that you use to prepare for both your CV, resume, interview, any of that? Whoever wants to share first.
Yeah, so I began my application process. I began it 2 years before the summer that I knew that I wanted to get an internship. And this is because, as Rahil said, the big companies, like they'll open up the positions it's almost like a year before the actual intern opportunity. So I started 2 years before and that first year, what I did is I made a spreadsheet and I kept track of the open dates. Like, okay, these will open around this time for this internship opportunity. I knew that I wasn't ready to apply that year, but I just wanted to make myself a list of the internships that I would apply for the next year. And so ultimately what that helped is that it kept me really on track in terms of, okay, I know that this application is going to open up at that certain time because it's really difficult to kind of catch the application sometimes. Like I remember one of the bigger ones that I wanted to apply to was Edwards Life Sciences, and they had opened it up a couple of weeks before like the date that I had put on there. So by the time I tried to apply, it was already too late. And so even like these applications still like shift around. But yeah, I would really recommend keeping track with a Google form and also setting calendar reminders, maybe like a month before that date that you set, just so that you get yourself in that mental space. And I would also recommend applying to programs if you're like 2 years away from applying to internships. I would apply to programs such as the SMDP, the Scientist Mentorship Development Program. I applied 2 years prior and I was matched with a mentor from Eli Lilly. And so she was the one that recommended that I apply for that specific internship as well. And so then that's how I was able to get that opportunity into Eli Lilly. So there's different outlets for you to explore. I would really recommend those professional networks if you can get into those types of programs. And as Rahil mentioned, what I would do is if you're scared of like connecting with talent managers or talent scouts for specific companies, you can just follow them on LinkedIn. You just press follow, you don't have to connect, and then you get updates. Like when they repost something, when they post opportunities, it will like just be in your feed. And you don't have to be worried about like, oh, is it weird that I'm like trying to connect and I've never met this person before? So what I did is I've also followed a lot of talent scouts for the different companies that I was interested in, the ones that I've seen that would post internship opportunities in the previous years. And so as I was applying, then I was also getting like a constant feed of like, okay, this opportunity is also open. So that's That's really the strategy that I took to get an internship.
Karen, I bow down to you. That's like impeccably meticulous and conscientious. I wish I could say I was like that, but I wasn't. And the reason being is because I started grad school with the intent of wanting to be a research one university professor. I was very much wanting to do academia because I came from an extensive background of teaching and loved it. And for a lot of reasons I can go into later if people are interested, I transitioned to an industry mindset. I still loved mentoring, doing impactful science and teaching, but I decided for a lot of reasons that I wanted to do those things in industry instead. And so this mental frame shift happened about early in 2024. And it was then that I decided to get heavily involved with GPS STEM. I always saw the emails and I leveraged the opportunities they had for connecting with industry scientists at various companies of different sizes, from small biotech all the way up to large pharma. And the biggest thing that I did in the beginning that I recommend to all of you, I started with this question in my mind, which was, how will doing an industry internship, or honestly any internship, benefit me professionally and personally? And I break those up deliberately because professionally, most people are going to do it for the same reasons. They want to have a competitive line on their CV for when they're applying on the job market. They want to grow their professional network that they can leverage when getting on the job market. They want to be able to pivot their academic skills into a non-academic setting, which of course can also be powerful in bolstering your application. And all of those reasons are probably going to be shared by most of us. And so I would argue that is not what is going to help you to stand out. What is going to help you to stand out is the personal motivator. What gets you excited to get out of bed on Monday morning? What job is not going to give you the Sunday scaries? You know, what are your 5 and 10-year career plans? And those, in my mind, operated more like a personal statement that I did for grad school. And I believe really helped to set me apart from other applicants when it comes to these really, really competitive internships, especially for the larger companies. And so answering those questions sooner than rather than later can really help to set you up nicely when you start to go to a lot of networking events like I did, and you start to meet with industry professionals and be able to communicate your passions and experiences. A big one for me was the A2I conference that GPS STEM co-hosted last summer, and I believe they did it this past summer too. I had some friends go to it, where if you don't know about the event, they connect you with so many industry professionals across so many different sectors, both STEM and non-STEM, depending on your career interest. And it was there that I met so many people from AbbVie, and I met people from other big companies as well. I knew I wanted to go towards a larger company as opposed to a smaller biotech, but getting to see everything was really helpful. And AbbVie stood out to me more than any because so many employees came from the Irvine campus because it's a 10-minute drive, and nobody had any complaints about working there. If anything, they couldn't stop bragging about how much they enjoyed working for the company. It didn't mean it was perfect, but it just meant that there were so many things you could do there as a full-time employee, as an intern. And that's when I actually learned about these internships. And so for a lot of personal reasons, I focused on big pharma companies, which we can get into later if people are interested, but I applied locally. I do have 2 young children, so I didn't have the luxury to be able to, go out of state or far away. And luckily, AbbVie was right down the street. And so I applied to AbbVie as well as Amgen, which is another large pharma company. And when I was applying, I really leveraged AI. I'm a huge fan of AI, but I'm also cautious enough to know that it needs to be used responsibly. And so the way that I used it was to do mock interview practice. So I have a premium subscription to ChatGPT, and I leveraged the voice mode function so I could do mock interviews, which I really loved because I could do it whenever I wanted. And I would literally say, okay, ChatGPT, here's the job post. Here's the preferred and minimum qualifications. Here's a copy of my CV. I want to do a mock interview session consisting of a randomized order of technical and behavioral questions. I will answer using the STAR method: situation, task, action, result. And then I want you to give me my strengths and weaknesses on my answer and how you would answer it yourself. And that was so powerful because by the time I got to my interviews, like 80 to 90% of the questions were exactly what I had rehearsed. But they were also organic questions that I'd carefully taken the time to craft so that it would not only be a succinct and concise answer, but something that truly represented who I am. Because if you focus too much on thinking what the company wants to hear from you rather than what you want the company to hear from you yourself, it can like, they're going to want people who genuinely are excited and they know what to look for and what not to look for. So I think there's a lot more I could go into, but I'll stop it there. And if anyone has questions later, I'm happy to expand further.
Perfect, thank you. So now we'll be moving into the third topic, which is balancing academics and internships. So this next set of questions is really for Sydney and Rahil, since I know for Sydney, you did your internship on campus, and I know you were balancing a lot of other responsibilities, such as passing a candidacy exam and, of course, research, and same with Rahil. So if Sydney wants to start off with this section.
Yeah, so I definitely did have to work hard at balancing my internship projects so that I was getting enough experience because I easily could have just like gone to meetings and never really participated in many projects and just said that I did an internship but not have actually gained any real skills. But I really had to balance that with like the demands of being in my like later years of grad school. So I started my internship basically immediately after advancing to candidacy. So I advanced to candidacy in the spring and then I started my internship in the summer. And because I had just passed candidacy, I was like, great, I don't have that much going on because I really accomplished this big milestone. So I kind of front loaded myself with larger projects and a lot more like learning experiences where I could meet with other people on campus and learn about like the different ways that research development functions depending on what field or department you're in. So I was able to do a lot more in the summer when I didn't have classes and when I had already passed this big milestone. And then during the rest of the year, I continued to attend meetings and do small projects on the side as they came up, but I wasn't overloading myself with stuff because I knew that I had classes and I had research work to do. I was also preparing my publication during that time, so getting it up on bioRxiv. So I was balancing that. And then when I got to the second summer, I also wanted to take on more big projects and I was being given more responsibility because I had shown that I was like dedicated to pursuing this internship and continuing to help out. So they were willing to give me more like important things to work on. But I also had at the same time, I got back reviewer comments on my paper. So I had to juggle like getting this more responsibility in my internship and wanting to, show that I was worthy of that and be able to make a good impression. While also like prioritizing that you have to get reviewer responses back and getting all those like extra experiments done at the same time. So I think one key thing was really just being really, really aware of deadlines, which is super important in research development because you have to get the grant in on time or else you're not going to get funded. So making sure that I had both like deadlines internally for myself about when I wanted to get certain portions of my academic research responsibilities done. And then also like knowing when the actual deadlines for things that I was working on for my internship were, because those were really set in stone as compared to kind of the amorphous, like, oh, I kind of want to get this experiment done by next week. That can kind of happen. And then by the time you're trying to rush everything at the end to get everything in for the rebuttal and reviewer comments response. So I just made deadlines for both so that I was able to balance the two of them. It was stressful because I was doing the revisions and having these big projects at the same time, but just making sure that I was setting internal deadlines for myself was really helpful to keep the balance. And also not taking on too much. So like I was asked to do a separate project and I said I can't do that because the timing just doesn't work with like when I need to resubmit these reviewer comments, and that at the end of the day, you're getting your degree. So that's definitely the priority. So when you're doing an informal experience and you're interning at the same time that you're continuing to work on your research work and go to classes, I think like managing your expectations on what you're able to accomplish and putting these deadlines and then being willing to say, I can't take on that project right now in this sort of sense. And this setting of an internship, I think, is valuable to making sure that you can balance things.
Nice. As a really quick follow-up before we switch over to Rahil. So since for your specific position, work and the internship kind of started blurring together since it's all at UCI. So do you think, in your opinion, would it be considered boundary setting for yourself for helping, I guess, compartmentalize yourself between, okay, this is what I'm going to do for lab, this is what I'm going to do for internship, and how you can make sure you don't overstep on either side?
Yeah, I think for me, I set specific times that I was going to work on internship related projects. So I blocked out time in my calendar on days where I knew it didn't have a lot of experiments to do, or like I would do experiments in the morning and then do my internship related responsibilities later in the afternoon. And I think as long as you're meeting the expectations of your advisor and staying on top of meeting deadlines and actually making progress, then it really shouldn't be a problem taking the time out to do that. So they didn't really blur over each other because I just made sure to do them at separate times. And oftentimes I would also, like, if I'm gonna spend a whole day working on I participate in this process called limited submissions, which is where the university can only submit one grant for the whole university. So PIs have to apply internally. So I did like reviewing for that. And when I needed to do that, I set aside a day where I didn't come into lab and I worked at home and like put myself in the mindset of I'm reviewing these things and not thinking about lab. So yeah, just like, yeah, trying to get them as separate as possible, making out time specifically for what you need to do for interning versus research work, and then keeping deadlines for both, even though research can kind of be amorphous. You want to make sure you have deadlines when you have another thing on the side that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. So back to Rahil now.
Yeah, so for my experience, the first internship that I had was so fun, everything nice. I was able to take a lot of projects in that internship because I didn't have to do anything about my research at the grad school. But for my second internship, because I'm an international student, I was supposed to do my qualification exam by the end of third year, which would have been at the same time of my internship. And I had actually had to do my internship because my PI had no funding and because I was financially independent from my family, I kind of had to do the internship as well. So I had no choice but to do them both at the same time. And because I had no papers published by then, I worked with human data. It relies on people getting sick and going to the hospital for that specific disease. So I had no paper published for prior my qualification exam. So I had a lot of stress. I had to work on that stress and like manage both of them at the same time. So here I want to say that I asked for help. I went to therapy. I was very anxious, and therapy really helps me. So I want to say, yeah, just you should ask for help if you need it. And in terms of how I managed it, otherwise, I would go to work 8 to 4, 9 to 5. I would talk to my manager at the company, and they were flexible about the time that I go to the work, as long as I do my goals and as long as I'm there for like acceptable amount of time. So I would go from 8 to 4, 9 to 5 to work, and then after that, I would go to the library or a cafe to work on my preparation for my qualification exam. And to make it fun, because nobody wants to work more than 8 hours, I would set a goal of exploring different libraries, different cafes in the city. So like that would make it more fun a little bit. And yeah, that's how I kind of managed to do them both at the same time.
Well, that's a lot. Props to you for handling everything in stride. So our last topic before we switched over to an audience Q&A session is navigating the professional environment, because you convinced your PI, you went through the application and interview process, and now you're here. But it's going to be a different experience adapting to a new culture, especially when we're not used to, for example, operating in a corporate environment. So let's see, Cameron, Rahil, and Karen, could you speak on, let's see, your experiences working at your company, any big differences you encountered between academia and corporate? any of those, and we can start with Karen on this one.
So the biggest difference I felt just going from industry, I mean from academia to industry was the support from my team. Um, it's nice knowing that you don't have to do everything and that if you don't know how to do something, you can just ask for help and they will refer you to somebody that does know how to do it. And another big thing for me was the sheer like a number of resources that I have available. And I will say I also had a very supportive boss. And so anytime I was like, hey, I want to use BioRender for this, then I would get a BioRender license. I got GraphPad Prism license. I had access to any license that I wanted in order to complete my project as soon as possible. And the biggest license that I got access to was like this AI integrated large scale image segmentation program, which it's AI. So you kind of like you can build AI models within this program to analyze images. But like a license for that is like 50 grand. And so the company was already going through the process of obtaining one license, but I was like, hey, I kind of want to, like, what if we use that? And so he was like, okay, let me put in the request. So that to me was like the most eye-opening thing.
Cameron next, maybe?
Yeah, sure. So I think I had a unique experience from other interns I worked with at AbbVie. Leading up to the actual internship day, I had already been assigned to one manager and one project. But then the week before I started the internship, I found out that my assigned manager was leaving the company to go elsewhere. And so I ended up being assigned to their boss and a completely new project the week before starting the internship. And so it was a bit tricky because I was like, even though it's the same department, it's a completely different vantage point. And I already had zero background when it came to eye disease, which is what my project focused on. And so now, in addition to a brand new field, I'm having to do a completely different topic than what I had been spent months mentally preparing for. But like Karen mentioned with her experience at Eli, AbbVie was incredibly supportive and collaborative. I remember the first couple of weeks that I got to AbbVie, I was reading so many papers to familiarize myself with this new field. And I was walking up and down the halls every day, just trying to learn who's the go-to person for that, who's the go-to person to troubleshoot this. And by the end of the internship, I must have connected with like 40 people because everybody was so willing to help you out. They were so willing to help you troubleshoot things they had already themselves experienced and said, yeah, just do this. It'll save you time because it's only a 10-week internship. So every week has to count. And they were so incredible. And even though my new supervisor couldn't be as present as they would have liked to have been because they had already had their own commitments that didn't involve having an intern, they were still incredibly supportive in the capacity that they could be. And kind of like Karen said too, at least at AbbVie, when I was an intern, if you wanted to buy something that was 10 grand or less, they usually didn't care. It was usually when it was more than that you needed manager approval. And so similarly, if you wanted to buy certain reagents or software licenses or other things to help expedite and create reproducible data that could be utilized after we left, it is nice to have that opportunity. And I would say that although I had minimal supervision during my internship, I think I was still well prepared to matriculate into that last minute fast-paced environment because of the experience I've had here in academia. So definitely rely on your academia experiences when you think about how you're going to thrive in the corporate environment, because it's a lot more transferable than you might initially consider. And so through all of those experiences, I really did get this sink or swim experience that my manager at AbbVie said is exactly what industry is like, whether you're an intern or a full-time employee.
Rahil?
Yeah, so I think my experience was a little bit different from Karen and Cameron because I was working in a startup, so smaller company, and I think I'm gonna focus on more of the cultural things. So when for my first internship, I was supposed to join the team that they were doing their project for a long time, and I was supposed to help them in publishing their products. So I think the first thing that I learned there was, as a newcomer coming to the project that they have worked a lot on, I realized that it's very important that I acknowledge how much effort that they have done and like try to not overpower what they're doing. But I also understood that they had a lot of experience and knowledge in that regard, but they lacked the research point of view, which I brought to the table. So I tried to help them with new experiments, and like I had to be respectful and acknowledging their efforts, but at the same time to give them directions without like overpowering them and telling them, okay, I'm a new guy, but I know what to do. So that was a little bit challenging for me at the first internship, but I learned how to adapt. And then something that beside adapting, I tried to do was to kind of create a new culture there for myself. So when I joined there, it was a little bit different for from my experience, because in our lab we kind of have lunch sometimes together. We are very social, and when I was there, I realized that everybody are having lunch at their desks and they're like super alone and lonely. So I started having lunch with 2 or 3 people that I knew, and then I invited more and more and more people. So at lunchtime, it would be like 10 of us in one room having lunch together. And that's enabled me to make great connections. And because that lunchtime was informal, I would be able to know more about the company itself and like what's happening logistically, because they were going through a layoff. And I learned about that before the HR telling me, so I could kind of prepare if I need to like do something in order to secure my position or not. And that was very helpful for me. For my second internship, before joining the company, I started reading some books about how to do more better communications. Like, and I really enjoyed them, so I want to introduce them to you as well. One book was Thanks for the Feedback, and the other is Dare to Lead by Brené Brown. I really enjoyed these 2 books because they helped me for with the communication and like getting feedback, giving feedback, and I tried to incorporate them into my experience through my second internship. And I would like monthly, I would set meetings with the members of my team, and beside my manager, I would ask them to tell me how I can improve, like what are the things that I can do, and they would see that I'm open to these to their suggestions, and I'm open to learn more, and that would give them the ability to trust me more, and we could work better as a team, I think. And at the end of my internship, I also got a feedback that I'm gonna try it in my next experience. That it's nice to be initiative and like ask questions from the other teams, to like be more curious about what others are doing. So I could maybe incorporate some of the ideas that they have in my own project.
All right, and in the name of time, I will have one more question before we can turn it over to our audience, and it is for Sydney. So I wanted to ask if you feel working at RD was a big change of pace in comparison to your lab, just in terms of like professional environment. Did your position come with any expectations you weren't expecting, or was it more or less what's written on the tin?
It is pretty different from working in an academic lab. I think the biggest difference is that the work is really project based and extremely like sporadic. So like a PI might think that they want to apply for this grant and they work a little bit on it and then they decide, oh, I'm actually not going to submit because I don't have enough time to work on it. So you might like I would spend time on things that didn't end up actually working out. So that was definitely different because in my own like directed research, like I'm the one driving the project and I'm the one making the decisions about where to go next, obviously, and in communication with my PI, but there's like a lot more people that you have to deal with and a lot more people's needs and interests, and they all have their own separate schedules that you have to accommodate. So I think that was definitely a change of pace where things would just like get dropped because they just decided they didn't want to apply, even though you spent all this time on it. Another thing is like the bureaucracy is very different. So you don't really have to deal with a lot of that as a grad student. You're kind of, there obviously there's like purchasing and things that go on, but they're kind of amorphous to you a lot of the time. You don't really think about the day to day of how labs run. But definitely I had to think about like all the bureaucratic steps of getting things approved. So like we might have finished the proposal and everything's ready to go, but then there's like 6 other people that have to approve it before it gets submitted. So you have to like really change the pace and there's like times of lull and times of really fast, intense work where you have to get things done because we're at the last minute and you have to get the proposal in. So I think, yeah, like the pace was quite different from like doing my own work, because at the end of the day, it's like a service position where you're helping out faculty as opposed to you like driving your own project for your own professional and academic goals. So I think that was kind of the biggest change. You like if you're in any organization, there's going to be bureaucracy and steps that you have to go through to get things approved, and that's not something I was as familiar with as a graduate student. But so yeah, overall it was pretty different, and I think even now, like in the work that I'm doing now, it's very, very different from what I was doing as a grad student. I'm pretty much like I'm at my desk all day working and doing emails, and that was what I was doing in my internship. So I guess it pretty well prepared me for what I was going to do in my job.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing, Sydney. So now I'd like to turn it over to the audience for any questions. I do see we had one in the chat earlier from Mehdi and Harika, who wanted to know for Rahil if you could share more about how being an international student impacted the internship application process for you.
Sure. Yeah, I know that's kind of a concern for international students. It depends on what kind of company you want to target. For the big companies, big tech companies, as far as I know, there is a process that you need to apply for export license. And so for those big companies right now, specifically, that export license program takes a lot of time to be approved. So I really suggest if you want to apply for those big companies, start early application and do all the interviews as fast as possible that you can do, like schedule them as soon as you can. And then because that export license takes a lot of time to be approved. For generally beside that, so like the other companies that don't need export license, you need to apply for CPT if you want to do a full-time internship during summer or any of the quarters. An international student can do 365 days of full-time internship, but you have to apply for the CPT for that. The whole process is very well explained in the International Center website. I can put the link here for you. But the process is that you have your offer letter and you will apply for the summer session 1 and 2. You will pay a fee, and then you will have your approval, and you can work work full time during that like 12 weeks of your internship. I hope that answers your question. I will put the link.
Let's see, I dropped this in the chat, but if you have a question, feel free to unmute and ask it, or you can just type in the chat and I'll write it up for you or say it for you.
Hi, Rahil. This is Harika. I'm currently in my 4th year, and I'm also an international student. I wanted to ask specifically, I was talking to the International Center, and they said that you have to like do either your degree has to require an internship experience, or you have to enroll in a course that requires an internship experience. So I'm assuming maybe you enrolled in a course and you paid a fee for summer session. Were there any specific ones for your department or degree?
Can I know which department you're from?
I'm in microbiology and molecular genetics in School of Medicine.
Okay, I might not be familiar with their regulations, but as far as I know, this is the process that all of international students around me did. Is that, as you said, either they are required by their program or they are not, like me, who go and enroll in summer session 1 and 2, or maybe one of them based on how long their internship is. So that's the course that they are referring to. And yeah, the whole process, I just put the link there for you to know. But yeah, you apply for the summer session. They have like their own department. You have to apply for them early. They will, and you pay a fee. They will accept your application, and then they will send it. You will have some form that you have to send for the international center with your CPT letter for the application of your I-20 to be updated, and then you're good to go.
Okay, that makes sense. Do you happen to remember any specific summer course that you had to register for?
No, that's at least for my department, there were none.
Okay.
So the summer session 1 and 2 was the one I had to like enroll in.
Okay, thank you.
So we have just a couple more minutes here. If anyone else has any questions, I did put the panelists LinkedIn. So later on, if you guys want to connect or keep any discussions going, that you had more specific questions, you can go ahead and connect with them on there. But before we head off, if there are no questions, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming. Thank you to Tessa for being our moderator. And thank you to our panelists, Sydney, Karen, Rahil, and Cameron. And then Tessa, if you have any closing remarks.
Yeah, so of course, I'm going to reiterate by saying thank you, everyone, for showing up to this panel. Thank you to our panelists for taking the time out of their day to share their experiences, because again, I know how important this is for a lot of us, but it's really tough to get an idea of what this process is like until we sometimes hear from peers who have gone through that same process. So again, thank you. And for any other audience members, feel free to connect with our panelists with the LinkedIn below. And without further ado, I think that's the end of the event. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day and rest of your week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Nice to meet you all.